Next slide. All right, this is a real bone of contention for some people, and I know that everyone has a lot of questions, so I'll try to cover as much as possible on how to work with your administrators. First of all, realize that food service directors are extremely busy people, especially in larger districts. I know I personally go to at least one site every day. It's fun in my office, don't get me wrong, but I have a much better time seeing how our new programs are going over with students, and the best way is to go out to the site and see that. You know, I also have appointments with vendors and with parents they're calling and things like that. So respect the fact that a director of food service has a very busy schedule, and you should try and make an appointment with them after 1 o'clock, because that way the service day is over, and they usually are freer in the afternoon than they are in the morning. Meet with your principals. You know, principals are a great source for pushing change through, especially if you're running up against a food service director who's not super interested in change, because principals are the ones who see how kids act after consuming all that sugar. Usually one that's receptive to change is easier to win over to your side, but you'd be surprised how many principals are out there who are really waiting for a parent group or an activist group to come to them and say, hey, we need help, can you help us? Because sometimes principals think that they're the only person out there who wants change, and they have enough to do, and it kind of slides to the back burner. Elementary administrators are often much more open to changing into healthier choices for kids, because the kids are smaller and they're easier to persuade than middle school or high school. But I guarantee that you have at least one principal in your district who is just waiting for someone to walk into his office and say, I would really like help with this, can you please help me? And you'd be surprised how quickly they'll jump on your bandwagon. I will tell you that there's nothing better that a food service director likes than somebody who's willing to volunteer. So offer to do a pilot project at a site and volunteer to collect the information and perhaps you know, kind of set it up and put it together and do the monitoring. You know, get your advocacy group or your parent group and say, hey, we really want to try this. Let's show them what a great thing it can be. And the food service director doesn't have to pay you, so how could they say no? You have to be patient, but you have to be persistent. My dad was in maintenance, operation, and transportation in school districts for 30 years, and the best thing that I ever learned from him regarding working in a school district was you have to be persistent, because either the person who you're coming up against will die or they'll retire. So you just have to wait. You know, school district people usually stay in a job for a long time and they get firmly entrenched in their ways. It's not that they don't want to change. Maybe they're just afraid to change, or they're afraid that they won't be able to do it right. So just offer to help them and be polite about it. Really focus on small changes and really celebrate them. When we took out chocolate milk, it was a huge step for the district. It was a huge step for our county. You know, we're one of the only school districts in the area that has done it. Ventura Unified, right next to us, has been doing it for 10 years, but she experienced a lot of pushback. And when we did it here and we had no pushback, it was a huge celebration for my department, because I was really anticipating a lot of flack, but I didn't get any. So another thing that I can tell you about why some food service directors may want to be keeping chocolate milk on is there's a huge amount of incentive from vendors that we work with to order certain items. Like, for instance, there's a company that I'm not going to say their name, but if you order their burritos, they'll give you, if you order a certain number a year, you get points to pick items out of their catalog, like bicycles or sports equipment or things like that. Or if you order enough of them, you can actually get kitchen equipment like an oven or things like that, things that you would not normally have money in your budget to purchase. So there may be a bunch of vendors who are behind them saying, no, but keep ordering our product. We'll give you free stuff. We'll give you free stuff. So that's usually a real stumbling block for food service directors, because they say to themselves, but if I stop ordering this product, I won't be able to get free whatever it is. So just keep in mind that it's not just, you may not be running up just against somebody who doesn't want to make good things for kids, because food service directors, in my experience, of course we want to do good things for kids. That's what we're here for. But there's a lot of going on behind the scenes by vendors and other companies where they're trying to keep our business because we are a big business. All right, next slide. Okay, how can you get quality milk in your schools? Well, talk to your sales representatives. There's very few dairies in the area that package for schools. You know, it's time consuming. There's not a lot of profit to be made. The only thing that makes it is the quantity that they sell. So, for instance, it's much easier to get a container, a gallon full of milk filled than it is to fill the same fluid amount in small little pint sizes. So it's time consuming. You have to buy specialty equipment. So there's not a lot of dairies out there that will work with schools. So you wouldn't have to go through a huge list. You know, meet with those dairy distributors. They have a product to sell just like we do, just like any business does. And so even though it's time consuming and there's not a huge amount of profit in it, the more they sell is the more profit they make. And a school district is required by federal law to not have any bills go into arrears. So once a vendor gets into a school district, you're guaranteed to get paid because that's what we're required to do by law. So it's not like a private business that could go out of business at any moment. We have to stay in business because we're in the business of education. And we're not allowed to have any bills go into arrears. So it's a great thing for a vendor to get into a school district because it's a guaranteed payment. Tell them what product you're looking for. Ask if it's available. If it's not available, ask them why it's not available. You'd be surprised some of the silly things that people come up with, such as, well, we don't want to have to drive out there at that time, or things like that. You know, school food service is a good business account, and like I said before, we have to pay our bills on time, so it's great for businesses to get in there. And here in Rio, at least for our dairy that we deal with, chocolate milk and white milk cost the same. Why chocolate milk costs the same as white milk when you have to do more to it, I will never know. My recollection of the business classes that I attended, the more you do to a product, the more it costs the customer. But, you know, I'm not in on the dairy industry's reasoning behind that. So usually chocolate milk costs the same as white milk, and in some cases it might even be less. It's usually not in my experience, but it could be. So that's always something to consider too. All right. Is there another slide? Yes. Okay. Here's more of our contact information there at the bottom. And Seth, did we have any questions?
We did have some questions, Laurel. You've touched on a lot of them, but I thought I would pull a few that came from the audience the first time we did this, just quickly. So you touched a little bit about some of the incentives that might be coming to food service directors. There was a question from Jill about what the fear is in taking away the flavored milk. Why are people so resistant to it, do you think? Is it financial? Is it nutrition? What is it that's holding people up?
Well, I can tell you that the Dairy Council is a large, powerful entity in our business. They have pretty much the same powers like the gas companies, and they make a huge amount of material for, you know, those got milk posters and all that stuff. They make a huge amount of that material specifically for flavored milk. Now, why that is, I'm not really sure, but their interest is selling as much items as possible. And we are, as food service directors, we are constantly bombarded with incentive programs and free advertisement posters and, you know, free trainings and things like that by the Dairy Council and representatives of the Dairy Council. And it's very difficult when you have a finite amount of resources to say, I don't want to take those items because they promote something I'm not interested in selling. And it's very hard after you've been doing this for a long period of time for some people to say, no, I want to make a change. As we all know, change can be very scary. And usually, since food services is a self-funded entity, which means that we do not take money out of the general fund, we have to operate as a standalone business entity within the school district system. It means that if we go in a new direction and it bombs and we end up going into the red, then your job could be on the line with your boss. So that's always something to keep in mind too. Any other questions?
Maybe one or two more, Laurel.
Okay.
there was one that came in a couple different ways, including from a student, a high school student, but also from other folks on the webinar, about the idea that some kids just won't want to drink plain milk. And so if you take away their chocolate milk, they might either shift to a sugary juice or they might not drink anything at all. What would you say to that, if that's the discussion?
Well, that is a concern, but it's a good idea to remember that the nutrients and calcium and other items that come in milk also come in other foods too. They come in cheese, they come in other dairy products. Schools are required to only serve 100% fruit juices, which means they can't sell juice that is only like 70% juice and 30% water or whatever, at least here in California. I'm not quite sure what the requirement is in other states, but I believe that's a federal standard. Anyway, so you can have juice as an alternative in some areas. You still get, from orange juice, you still get the calcium and you still get the same nutrients that you do from milk, even though milk as a plain milk has less sugar. But remembering that sugar comes from fruit. Some of the other things to keep in mind is that if it's the only thing that you offer, eventually they're going to take it. So that's why here in Rio we don't offer anything else that comes with your meal. We only offer milk that comes with your meal. You're welcome to purchase other items, but like I said, that's an added expense for some families that are not interested in spending that extra money. So limiting your other choices is a pretty good way to take it, because I guarantee for a certain amount of time, you're right, they may not take the other milk, but they'll be thirsty eventually.
Sometimes you just have to wait them out. And maybe one last question, Laurel. We're so grateful for your time here. There was a question from Michelle about are food service directors like you trying to shift the opinions of School Nutrition Association members to phase out flavored milk? I'm just wondering whether you see a trend toward healthier choices evolving amongst your peers in your business, and how food revolutionaries out there can start to help to influence this trend amongst other food service directors.
Well, I unfortunately this last year I haven't had a chance to go to any of the School Nutrition Association, great association though, I really enjoy them, meetings, just because it's only me and my assistant, and we've been doing a lot of new items. When I do go to directors meetings for the county that I work in, I have seen a trend from some of the, as my assistant likes to call them, the old guard, just starting to change their opinions, because and I am not above shaming other directors into changing their ways. I love talking about the things that we've done here in Rio, and when I do go to national meetings in Sacramento and things like that, I love bragging about what we've done here. I take that picture of the banner with the cute cow with me everywhere, and I have those statistics memorized on how many calories and pounds of sugar that we've stopped serving. And I feel that if parent advocacy groups and other revolutionaries out there are just keep it really super positive, even though that's difficult sometimes because you might run up against a lot of roadblocks, keeping people positive and being really positive about the changes that you want to make, or really celebrating the things that you have been able to change, it shames people into getting onto your side of the fence, because they look at you and they say, oh my God, look what they're doing. How come I'm not that happy? How come we haven't done that? And in my experience, it's easier to change people's minds the more positive and happy you are about changes that you have done or that you want to make.
Well, there you have the message, everybody. You have to be positive. You have to point to examples that have done it. Laurel, we're so grateful for you for doing this for us twice now. This webinar recording will join the slides that are available on our website. Everyone can see that on the screen. Laurel has graciously offered to make herself available for questions, particularly if there's a food service director or a nutrition director in your school system who has questions about how to get it done, because obviously she's done it. So her email is on the screen along with the rest of us. We hope to hear from everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.